Let It Be, one of Kevin's favorites. My name is Kurt. I want to welcome you. Thank you all for coming. You need to know that Kevin's life was about community, and this time here, we want to look at those things. I want to talk about those things that Kevin lived. We want to honor Kevin. We want to celebrate his life, and sometimes that's hard to think of and do in the middle of our loss, our sadness. But Kevin's life was a gift. And we want to remember that each day of his life. And so thank you for being here, for Lori, for the family, on behalf of them, your support, your community, your relationship. It's important. And we're going to share some stories, some people, and some memories. We're going to talk about those things. I want you to listen and hear about relationship and about community, because that's what was important for Kevin. So as we begin, I'd invite you just to join with me in prayer, and we'll invite God into our presence and time together here. Lord, I do want to tell you thank you. Thank you for Kevin. Thank you for his life. And I thank you for yourself and who you are and the way you are. Often a mystery to us, but the things that are necessary and are clear, we want just to ask you to show those things, to remind us of those things, the things that are true for all time. So, in this time and in the words that are said and offered up here, the songs, the pictures, just the memories, I just pray that you would be pleased to bless this time, to honor Kevin as we remember him, to be with us as we mourn and grieve, and especially for Lori and the family. Just comfort them and remind them of your love for them, and to be able to see that expressed in the relationships and the community of the people around them and gathered together here. So use this time for your glory, for your sake. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So I'm going to read the eulogy, and then we're going to have Kim will be up here in a little bit, and she's going to lead us in a daily reading. And then friends and those who knew Kevin, we've got Steve and Jenny and Dave are going to share some stories and hear that. And as they do, I want you just to listen for the stories about relationship and what relationship and what community is meant to be and what it's about. So, Kevin's life. Patrick, and I don't know if anybody called him that, Patrick Kevin Conover, 70, of Lincoln, Nebraska, passed away on November 26, 2025. He was born August 3, 1995, to Alman and Nancy Conover. Kevin grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and was proud to be a Havelock native. He found joy in riding motorcycles, especially his Harley, and loved camping, woodworking, and tackling any project that needed fixing or remodeling. And he was a true homebody at heart. He spent many years restoring the farmhouse where he lived for the past 21 years. Kevin had a deep passion for helping others. As a longtime member of Narcotics Anonymous, he dedicated more than 30 years to supporting people in their recovery journeys, and he cherished time spent with friends, whether sharing a good cup of coffee or enjoying a meal together. And he was a skilled marksman. Kevin looked forward each year to competing in the Lincoln Trap and Skeet League, Shooting with his longtime team brought him great pride, and together they earned several Division III championship titles. Kevin worked for Constructors Incorporated in Lincoln for 29 years, retiring on December 1st, 2021. He also served his country with pride as a member of the United States Army from 1980 to 1983. Above all, Kevin loved being with his wife, Lori, his dog, Blue, Conover, his family, friends, and especially his grandchildren, whose events he rarely missed. His kindness, his generosity, and his steady thoughtfulness touched the lives of many. Kevin is survived by his wife, Lori, his dog, Blue Boy, stepson, Mike and Heatherly, stepdaughter, Tara and Jim Peters, grandchildren, Taylor, Ivan, Madison, Lillian, and Emery's, his brother, Michael, and wife, Linda Conover, sister, Shannon, and Wayne Inui, and numerous nieces, nephews, cousins, and friends. And he was preceded in death by his parents. So, Kim.
Hello, family. Let's start this with the Serenity Prayer, and I want to do it together. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I thought it was fitful, so on December 27th, Kevin would have had 31 years clean. Out of our Spiritual Principle a Day book, I thought the reading was very befitting of who Kevin was. So December 27th, harmony and our connection to each other. We see ourselves as part of something greater and seek to live in harmony with it. The connection we share with other addicts in recovery is undeniable. We bond as we share about our difficult pasts and learn to laugh at ourselves. The common solution we found in the 12 steps of NA keeps us grounded and growing. We need each other to stay clean. We lean into this truth in the beginning and through the rough patches that life brings. Together we can, as the saying goes. That's at the heart of the simplest, most profound conception of a power greater than ourselves. Belonging to something greater than ourselves is sweet, and we want more. We see the wisdom, sometimes with 20/20 hindsight, of the common refrain, if you want more out of this program, you've got to put more in it. We seek opportunities to share the freedom we found in NA. We may pick up an extra slot on the phone line or make a point of supporting a struggling group. These actions are symbolic of our commitment to something greater. They contribute to the harmony in the rooms and in our heads. We're motivated, at least in part, by the good feelings and good times that doing service makes possible. While some of us love doing H&I work, others may be better suited to serving on the events or activities committee or maintaining the website. Some of us simply want to do anything other than speak at a meeting, but we will do that too if we are asked. There are so many ways to carry the message as there are addicts in recovery. Each member has strengths that will contribute to the work of carrying the message. When we serve together, sharing recovery from the disease of addiction, we sustain our primary purpose. Living in harmony with others brings us freedom, but we can only keep it by giving it away. I will contribute to the harmony in Narcotics Anonymous. I will help other addicts find their part in something greater, and I will enrich my own freedom by being of service. And man, to me, that is the essence of who Kevin was. He always did service work as long as I've known him. He's always been a part of something bigger than himself, right? And he he gave selflessly. He always helped people, and he was always there. You know, and our hearts may be sad for Kevin being gone, but I know for me, my heart is sad for the one left behind. And just know we're here for you, Lori, and we love you so much. You meant everything to Kevin. I know that without a doubt. He loved you selflessly, and you loved him selflessly, and for that, I'm grateful to be a part of that.
I'm really grateful that I'm able to share a little bit about Kevin. Been a dear friend for the last 28 years that I've known Kevin. Kevin once told me, he goes, you may never know who you touch, but as long as we just touch one person, our job is done. You know, and I look around, you know, this little chapel's full. We got 2 overflow rooms full. We got the people in the place where we're going to have a little lunch. You wouldn't be here if Kevin didn't touch you. You know, he's touched many lives. And he touched my heart, you know. Kevin was a family man, you know. He shared a story with me that he was working on a computer desk with his dad, building this computer desk, and you know, things were going really well, and all of a sudden his dad said, "Kevin, hold out your hand." Said he just didn't know what he really meant. He asked him again, "Kevin, hold out your hand." And Kevin held out his hand. And all his dad did was smile, and he nodded. You know, Kevin wasn't doing this no more. You know, when we get clean and stuff, those are some of the gifts that we give back to the people that love us the most. You know, I can remember my dad saying, you know, "I'm really glad to have my son back." You know, and Kevin's dad felt the same way. You know, Kevin also shared with me on how he went out to California to help take care of his mom with his sister. And he really felt humbled by that. And she had told him that Kevin, the older we get, the more friends we lose. And I've lost a good friend, you know. But he's walking with me today, you know. Be able to share some of the stuff that he shared with me, it's just beyond words. I really loved the way he shared about going to the grandkids' sports events, you know. Kevin wasn't a sports nut by no means, you know. But going to the wrestling matches, to the volleyball games, to the ball games, the baseball games that the grandson played in, meant so much to him. And man, Steve, you should have seen what they did. Man, it's just like he got excited about that stuff. So, you know, I seen this little one in his room, you know, the whole time. You know, it had touched my heart, you know. Kevin never had any natural children, but man, he found some grandkids that loved him to death, you know. And Kevin loved them. You know, when Kevin was in the hospital, his sister from California made it out, and I seen the true love that she had for Kevin. You know, she was rubbing her hand through his hair, and she had a smile on her face. You know, you could tell there was true love. Shortly before Kevin went into the hospital, Kimberly and her husband Dave was at the house, and I was there, and Kevin looked over at Dave and he says, "We're two really, really lucky men, aren't we? We got true loves." And I'm thinking in my head, God dang it, you got the good ones before I could get to them. You know, Kevin loved Lori. Lori loved Kevin. You know, he expressed that to me many times on how much he loved you, Lori. We all loved Kevin. Special man. The other day, my daughter came over. She has a roommate that there's a lady that came to our fellowship, and she's out of state, and she didn't know my address, but she sent this to my daughter. My daughter brought it over to me, and this is how I'm going to end. There was a poem in this card. Brother, on sand of time, your footprints stay, leading me forth night and day. Although you're gone and tears do fall, your steps remain throughout it all. In every chuckle, in every tear, I sense your footprints always near. For in my heart, you are never gone. Your footprints lead me ever on, guiding, loving, without end, my dearest brother, my forever friend. I love you. I love his silly hat. Kevin wore that thing all the time. That's all I got.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Jenny? Yep.
I'm going to try to do this without crying, but I'm not going to make any guarantees whatsoever. So, I've known Kevin for 32 years, okay? And Kurt, when you started out with community, that's exactly how I started out with thinking of him, you know? We all need to be a part of a community to strive, to thrive and to be our best selves. And Kevin was a part of numerous communities, okay? He was a very proud member of being born and raised in Havelock. That was his gig. He loved being from Havelock. He cherished his service to the United States Army, and he grew in that community. His job at Constructors, he shows that when you keep doing the next right thing, you advance your life and yourself so much, okay? And he did that. He had a ton of high school. Is there any high school friends of his here? Yeah, good. Because he loved you guys. He would talk about his friends in high school, and I thought how lucky you were to have known him for so long, you know? He loved his skeet shooting club. He was so proud of that. And I'm not much about guns, but, you know, it was what he loved, you know. And Narcotics Anonymous. And we all need to feel a part of something, okay? I don't know how people survive that aren't a part of something, But Kevin didn't have to worry about that because he was a part of so many things. And he was a gift to anyone he was in a community with, okay? He was organized, he was methodical, he was a perfectionist, and boy, did he ever have an opinion about everything, okay? I learned early on, don't debate anything with him. Don't even bother, you know? And he was always looking for a way to make things better for not only Narcotics Anonymous, but his friends, the farm, you know, everything. He wanted everything to be better. Being able to allow people to be with us through life is a gift and a blessing. Kevin and I both lost our sponsors in a 2-year period of time. And we were all very close. Our little home group, there's a core group of about 6 or 8 of us that are very, very, very close. And so we went through that together. And mine had the same kind of cancer Kevin had. It didn't progress as quickly. But we would call him the hope boat because that's what he was. He was hopeful always. I'm not saying he didn't recognize reality because he did, but he always thought that God was going to perform miracles. He was very faithful to his God in that way. And his sponsor died in a motorcycle accident. And he was there with both of them when they died. And I know that brought great comfort to them. We walked each other through both of those losses with the help of our community, you know, our NA community. I remember being out at the lake with a friend of ours from Idaho. His name was Rick. And him and Kevin just bonded. Kevin went on a motorcycle trip and met him at a meeting up there. And so the 3 of us were out at the lake, and Kevin cried and cried because he didn't think he'd done enough for them. And I think he came to realize that just being there at the end was what they both needed. That's what anybody needs, is to have someone there at the end like Lori was for Kevin. We went to a lot of funerals together. You know, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law. I had a niece and a great niece that were killed in a car accident that was really traumatic for me. And he was right there through that. His pops, oh my God, he loved his pops. He just adored his pops. We went through that together, and my mama and his mom and his second sponsor, Gary, he went through that too. His dad was an incredible woodworker. Connie could make incredible stuff. It was unbelievable. He loved his mom's grace. She was a very graceful woman. He loved Shannon's, his sister's, gentleness and softness. And he had a very strong sense of his great big God, and was totally at peace with his relationship with God, just like his brother always wanted him to be, okay? Whenever Kevin needed help with a project, he'd ask, you know, and guys would come. They would come. They would do anything for him because he had done so much for other people. He always recognized and thanked them, and always tried to repay him so well. Kevin did not ever think that anybody owed him anything. He never thought that way. And he always made sure to tell people what great things others did for him. He made sure to do that. Kevin did a lot of service in Narcotics Anonymous. Yes, his 31 years will be at the end of this month in a couple of weeks. 2 weeks from today, exactly. when he called me and told me he was sick and what it was, he again was the hope boat, you know, for himself and for Lori. And he put a positive twist on everything, you know, things that were bad and sad. He put a positive twist on them, you know. His faith was just incredible, you know. He was excited about the study he was involved in because he thought it would help somebody else, and I hope he knew that somewhere along the way he did. He started a new meeting in Lincoln, a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, called Happy Havelock, but because of course it was located in Havelock and he was from Havelock, okay? And that became my home group and my sponsors for many years. I was blessed to see him, to go to that meeting with him almost every week for 30 years and listen to his recovery. He likened his recovery to like building a house, you know. You had to have a firm foundation, you know, and then you had to build up from that. He had a lot of empathy and for the joy and sorrow of people in his life. He had a tremendous amount of empathy for that. When you live in the country and you lose power during a blizzard, which Lori got to experience this last couple of years, you don't have water, which means you can't flush your toilet, okay? Because your pump doesn't work. So we had one quite a few years ago, Kevin and I, and so we have an outhouse, fortunately, but it was the middle of winter and it was really cold out there. And Kevin called and he was busting through the snow to bring us a generator so we didn't have to freeze our butts off, but we got our power back before that. He also came out, another joy of living in the country, is he came out and dug the channels for when we had to replace our sewer system, you know. He came out and dug those channels with his little bobcat, you know. Kevin sponsored a lot of men and taught them through the steps to be the men God intended them to be, okay? Steve said he didn't have any children of his own, but he was such a father figure to young people in the fellowship. He was a father figure. He was a father figure to many of our kids, you know, and he was a joyous grandfather to Lori's grandkids. And you, Miss Lillian, he adored you. He really did. I also have a Lily, and I've always said that to you, and your little presence in that room seemed to calm him a lot, okay? He loved mine and Kevin's kids and grandkids. He used to come to some of our granddaughter's volleyball games. She lived in Bellevue, and a couple times she played in Lincoln, and here'd be Steve and Dennis and Kevin, you know, at the volleyball game. And I'll never forget, he loved Steve's kids. He loved Hunter, you know, Dave's child. He loved Hunter so much. And I think he was almost as proud of Hunter as you were, Dave, you know. And I will never forget the look on his face when he was holding Jay and Dane Job, they're friends of ours, at a meeting, and their little one was just not even 6 months old, and Kevin was holding him, and he asked what his name was, and they told him Patrick. And the joy on his face was just, of course he thought they named him after him, but, you know. He was a very kind and generous man. He was there for people he loved and cared for. He was there for you no matter what. He loved riding his motorcycle. He went on a lot of trips with his motorcycle family. Some epic trips, you know, with people that are gone now, you know. Him and Steve started something called the Apple Run many years ago, and it would go from the Meadowlark Cafe in Lincoln down to Wabaunsee Park, and the colors, we always did it in the fall, and the colors were incredible, and we'd have caramel apples, you know, and Steve's gonna start, he's gonna keep doing that, and I'm really grateful, Steve, you're gonna do that. Okay. And when he started dating Lori in 2014, I think, 2013, he hadn't had a relationship for a few years. You know, he'd done the deal, but he hadn't had one for quite some time. But he was a man that knew what he wanted, and he wanted a life with Lori. The sparkle in his eye and the twinkle when he saw her, I will never forget that, you know. He drove back and forth between Council Bluffs, he called it Council Tucky, you know, always, and then Omaha. After Lori moved to Omaha, he drove back and forth pretty much every weekend for 5 years, you know, even during COVID. And he worked and worked on that acreage because he was a perfectionist, but he wanted it to be perfect for you guys and to be your forever home. And I know you didn't get to grow older, that you both met the loves of your lives, and then you didn't get to grow old, and that's a tragedy. And I know we were all grateful for the time they had together, but it was not enough. And as Lori said, it was not supposed to be like this. They had a beautiful wedding out at the acreage, and everything looked so rosy. They went on a lot of trips. Not a lot, several major ones, Alaska and with Kim and Dave and Diane and Bucket, and they had the camper, and they went camping a lot of places, and Narcotics Anonymous has campouts all the time, you know, and the older you get, you can't camp in a tent anymore, you know. So Kevin loved his big camper, you know. Once he got sick, he moved to heaven and earth to make sure that he could do everything he possibly could to make sure that she would be physically okay and that she would not have to have any of the headaches living in the country can bring, you know. I know she would have stayed there if he'd have wanted to, you know. A few of his closest people got to take a last meeting to him exactly a week before he died. And the love in that room was amazing. It was just incredible. And he felt it, and we all felt it. And the love Lori had for him was to support him in all of his decisions, no matter what, about his illness. And when the pain was too much and he couldn't take it anymore, he chose to go into hospice. And he did not give up on his disease. He surrendered to God's will, that God wanted him to be at peace and be at a place with all the people that he loved, okay? His mom and pops and Scott and Gary, that's who he wanted to be with, you know? And Lori, you supported him in every step of the way. I will always love how you loved him, always. You truly were the love of his life, and I hope you don't ever second guess that you weren't enough, because you were. You were way more than enough. He was happier with you than in all the time I had known him, and it's been a long time. But you were you were it for him. You were kindred spirits. Kevin was a man that was rich in blessings. Look at all these people. And we were all rich for having him in our lives. And I love him. I loved him. I almost brought a Santa hat because by this time of year he'd be wearing a Santa hat everywhere, you know. So anyway, thank you.
I met Kevin many, many moons ago. I think it was 96 in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. He was there when my son was born. His comment was, "No need for a DNA test." You know, Kev, I loved Kev. Kev was a builder. He loved his tools. We had a lot in common. He gave me some tools of life that I didn't know existed. You know, I'd like to think that I helped him build his dreams, part of his dreams, and he helped me see mine. I mean, you know, I was thinking about what I was going to say today, and you know, I was going to write all this stuff down and whatnot, and that's just not how I roll, to be real anyway. Kev, you know, he'd call me up and say, "Hey Dave, what do you think about this?" You know, working on something when I damn well knew he knew the answer to it, but he wanted to bounce it off of me. I was always honored that, you know, he liked my craftsmanship, and I was always honored to do things for him because I know how meticulous he was. He's a very intelligent man. I loved working with him. We worked well together. You know, I don't think there's enough words to say what he meant to me and all of you. I mean, look around. You know, Lori asked me to say a few words today, and I was, you know, why me? You know, and I'm honored to be up here. Kev had a lot of character. You know, he getting ready for wedding day. You know, and I'm out there helping him, you know, build a deck, and you know, he's having these phoenix carved and trees cut down, and that damn bear. You know, that damn bear. It was like, you know, the artist carved it all up, and you know, it was, that whole elm tree was just, you know, splitting and falling apart. That bear had a lot of character, you know, and just like Kev, you know, it's it's what makes us, you know, all the scars, trials and tribulations and whatnot. know. Kev was a hell of a guy. And I'm proud to call him my friend and my brother. You know, I felt like he was my brother. Dignity. That special whatnot. You know, he said that all the time, whatnot. Not negotiable. I love you, Kev. I'll always carry you with me. Always.
Hey, thank you, you guys, for what you've shared. Kevin was a presence, wasn't he? I just even talking with my daughter Paula and David last night, she said, sometimes you don't expect that, do you? She said, "I'd still hear him call my name." Had a booming voice that projected, and a hearty laugh, and he was a presence. So, what's been said, we all know that Kevin loved community, and there's been all these stories, and there are going to be more, just stories of community and relationships. But community, what is that? What is it? What is it? What is it? And where does it come from? And where did Kevin's desire for community come from? A lot of questions. What makes good community or a bad community? I know that last weekend, after meeting with Lori and Steve and Kim, and hearing even more about Kevin and his love for community as in the recovery community, I came away and I thought that's what I want to talk about as we remember him today is community and what that is in relationship. And although I grew up in Northeast Lincoln, about the same time as Kevin, I went to Northeast and graduated as a rocket like him. I really, to my knowledge, only met him once, although we probably crossed paths doing some bad stuff long ago. That's just the way it was back in the 70s. But about 4 months ago, I sat across the table from him and we talked at another funeral. And it was there that I got a glimpse of what all of you know really, really, really well. Just that he had this love of open, face-to-face relationships, right? And that's one of the driving forces for good community, and Kevin had that. And there's, so many people today, the word community just can be very superficial and not really what we're talking about. Every retailer wants you to be a part of their community. Starbucks wants you to join their community and that kind of thing. But that's not the kind of community, when we talk about community, that we're talking about relationship. That's it's not the community that we want at the core. And the kind of community that Kevin was after goes much deeper. In fact, I believe that it's the heart longing that we all have. And good community, healthy community, is built on the values of honesty, even when that's hard, trust, safety, acceptance, and really ultimately love. And there have been countless studies and endless research that has shown again and again that humans don't do very well in isolation. And today, even with all of our electronic devices, with technology, and social media platforms for communication, there's growing evidence that people are even more lonely than ever before. Because we're in a world where we may know people, lots of people, and lots of people know us or who we are. But real community relationships, they're declining in our culture today. Why is that? Why is that? And just as we've heard, what was it about Kevin that caused people to enjoy him and want to be around him? Well, as we said, community, good community, it's about relationship. And we as humans have a core need for relationships with other humans. And in a good relationship, it's the place where we can find all those things that I mentioned. Honesty, safety, trust, acceptance, love. But here's the rub. While we need community, community and relationship is often the place where some of us have experienced our deepest hurts, some painful wounds. It can come out of relationship. And so to cope and to protect ourselves, we can hide. We can hide our true selves and retreat in isolation and keep our relationships at arm's length, and where we're in a place where we don't really connect with other people on a heart level or a soul level. And I am the men's pastor at the church I have, and I've counseled hundreds of men over the years. I've sat with guys who are struggling, trying to figure out life, how to make things work. And one of the things I see often in those situations is that these are men who are isolated and they don't do very well, and they make lots of mistakes that they regret. And like I said, they may know lots of people, but they aren't really known, and they don't get to know others at a heart and at a soul level. So what was it that Kevin did that made community a joy for him and a joy for the people around him, the people who knew him? I believe he knew the secret of healthy community relationships. And it doesn't need to be a secret, but what is it? What makes good community relationship work? I am a big believer in the principles of 12-step recovery and what they teach us about ourselves, about others, and about God, ultimately. And as a Christian pastor, my higher power is the God of the Bible and his revelation of himself through the person of Jesus Christ. Now, I don't ever push my higher power on anyone that isn't interested. But you know, if you've looked at it, the 12 steps, they are a spiritual program. They are about looking for an understanding, a spiritual power that is higher and greater and outside of our own limited, finite abilities to change the things about ourselves that we need help with. And the process requires relationships with others, community. It requires we surrender to the truth that we can never be who we really want to be or need to be without good relationships and community with others. Step one is an admission of our powerlessness. Step two is a decision to believe. Step three is a decision to surrender. Admit, believe, surrender. And those steps continue, the 12 steps continue to require that we listen and communicate with God about our lives. That's really about relationship. relationship with a God that does involve honesty, safety, trust, acceptance, love, those things about community. When I went into recovery for my own drug addiction many, many years ago, I learned that I could never be honest with others or honest with God until I was first honest with myself. And that was incredibly painful because I didn't like the things I saw about myself, but I had nowhere else to go. And I learned slowly, especially at first and then step by step, that I could experience a relationship with God. I learned that I could experience good relationships with other people. And I experienced community the way it should be. What I also learned, and what I believe Kevin learned, is that good and healthy community isn't experienced by taking. You've heard about his life. It's experienced by giving. And the more we give, and how do we do that? By listening, by serving, by helping, by offering up our true selves to others, but giving ourselves. And sometimes what we offer is just kind of a big mess. But if it is an honest mess, and we don't hide it, we'll find that the right people will offer us back by giving themselves in community. And that's what Kevin did for 30-some years. For 30 years, Kevin experienced life in this kind of community. He knew that sometimes relationships are bumpy, sometimes they're hard, but he didn't run away from those relationships, from face-to-face community with others. And he kept his face turned towards his higher power, and he kept his face turned towards others over and over again in community, in relationship. Now, I want to be clear, in spite of all of what we've heard, what's been said, we know that Kevin was a beautiful person who gave himself to others, but Kevin wasn't perfect. He failed. He made mistakes, and he made bad decisions. We all do. Nobody is perfect. And if we have to, in offering ourselves, in giving ourselves, if we had to offer perfection to God and to others before we could get help, then we'd still all be lost. But that's not who God is, and that's not a reason why we can't have hope. And not just the hope that is maybe I hope, or I sure hope, or a hope that doesn't pan out. You heard about Kevin being a person of hope and a person of trust. It's the kind of hope that is sure and it's guaranteed. And so we remember Kevin for his love of community. All the meetings, all the camping trips, all the adventures, all the motorcycle travels, coffee together, a meal, the times he loved to be with people. That was his lifeblood. And as we do that, I hope that you will continue to share those memories, to talk about those things, to remember his hearty laughter, desire to pull a prank or have a joke, just his presence in relationship and community, and especially remember the kindness and the love that he had for the people that he loved all around him, for his family, for his kids. Because even though it's hard, and even though we grieve, this is what brings healing. Face-to-face, community, talking with each other, and sharing those things, even if they hurt, but they're good memories also. That's what heals our soul. We don't run away from that. And so, this is what he would want. And as we close, I want to ask you to remember to consider your own need for community and how to experience that. It's the way of God who gives himself so that we can experience true community with him and with others in the way we should. And God knows that we can never experience the deepest parts, the meaningful parts of community by taking it. It can be asked for and humbly received, but it can be given, and we experience even more back as we give that. And I believe that's what Kevin understood as the core of it all, of giving. When you give, you get more back. So God offers this community with himself as a gift, again, not because we're perfect or because we deserve it, but because he has this incredible power, an incredible ability, and an infinite love for us to give to us and for us to experience his community and in community with others. We need that. And so just in closing, I want to say to honor Kevin. You want to know how to honor Kevin. Give yourself to others in community. Follow his model to give yourself by serving, by listening, by just, as we've heard, just being present with people and being there for them. People, there's a lot of hurting people out there who need to see what real community is and what real relationship is like and what it's built on. And if you do that, you will see what Kevin saw, that it's a life worth living in community. We're going to watch a video here with some pictures of Kevin and some more music that Kevin liked. So remember these things and remember it. great. I just want to, again, tell all of you, thank you. Thank you for being here. Community, to be together. It's, again, what Kevin would want is for relationships, face-to-face conversations. And there will be a reception following. I believe it's downstairs. Is that correct? Is it in the other? Okay. Another part of the building, and you'll have to ask someone back there how to get there. But thank you again for being here. One other thing I thought I'd mention, and I do this at most funerals, our church does offer a really great support group. Some of you maybe been through it. It's called Grief Share. It's offered periodically throughout the year. It's a support group for people who have experienced loss and are hurting and grieving, and being with like-minded people, kindred folk who are also doing that, and being led by a couple who are really good at that. So if you have any interest in that, you can talk to me afterwards, and I'll give you some more information on that. But I just would like to, again, close with prayer, and then we'll escort family out here, and then you'll all be dismissed from there. So would you join me with prayer? Father, again, we just come to you as a God who wants community with us, wants relationship with us, and thanking you for Kevin and his life and the gift of 70 years, and in those, particularly the gift of relationships that you gave to people who knew him, but also that you gave to him and what he experienced in recovery and just in giving himself in different ways to other people. Help us to remember him and to take that model and use that in our own world to give community to others. And thank you for just all that's been shared here, and for the rest going on. I pray for especially Lori, but also for family and some close friends, people that loved Kevin. I pray for them that you would just remind them of your community with them that's present always, and that is secure, and just helping them in that, in relationships with others too, to be healed. So thank you for this time. We love you. Amen.